Hey everyone, I'm Allison Morris and you are watching NBC News Now. Kim Potter making her first court appearance today. She's the ex-cop charged with second-degree manslaughter for shooting and killing Daunte Wright. We'll go live to Minnesota in just a few minutes. At the White House, President Biden slapping sweeping new sanctions on Russia, and Secretary of State Antony Blinken making a surprise trip to Afghanistan after the president announced a full withdrawal of U.S. troops there.
As we're drawing down our forces, we will be repositioning the tools and assets that we have to guard very carefully against the possible reemergence of a threat from Afghanistan. And we're confident that we have the means to do so.
All right, let's go straight to NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. Monica, let's start with those Russian sanctions. Who and what is the Biden administration targeting here? What are they saying about all this?
So we got a glimpse earlier today from the extensive release that the Treasury Department shared, Allison, but then President Biden also came out and spoke about these in detail and a little bit more emphatically. He said essentially in response to the SolarWinds hack and election interference in 2020 on the part of Russia, that the U.S. is now going to sanction these 32 entities and individuals, as well as some Russian cyber tech companies. So all of these actions were expected. The timing, though, was the real question, because we knew that this was something the president was examining, and today was the day he decided to come out and speak. But what was so interesting about his remarks is that he said he felt this was proportional, but that if Russia continues to violate democracy, he said in his words, then they were prepared to take additional actions and steps. So this is something of a warning from President Biden to his counterpart, of course, President Putin. The two spoke on the phone earlier this week. We know they spoke at least one other time after the president took office. But what's really interesting also here, Allison, is that now President Biden is inviting Putin to a summit at some point over the summer, perhaps in Europe. Now, we know the invitation has been extended, but it hasn't been accepted on the part of the Russians, who have said they are now trying to figure out their own response to the new sanctions listed today.
Oh, that's going to be an interesting one to watch for sure, Monica. Let me ask you on a separate topic. Tell us about Secretary Blinken's surprise trip to Afghanistan. I know these are not generally trips that are announced in advance.
You're exactly right, for security reasons, and of course because these are such delicate, high-level talks as well. So we know he was traveling, and he made this surprise visit to Afghanistan essentially to deliver the message in person that the president gave yesterday, which is that after consultation with allies, partners in the region, as well as U.S. military leaders, the State Department, the Pentagon, they have decided to withdraw American troops from Afghanistan by September 11th. And essentially, Secretary Blinken was saying the time has come, and he was really trying to make the argument in this face-to-face mechanism that it was time to end America's longest war. And that's why he was traveling there, to also meet with the Afghan President Ashraf Ghani. Allison.
Monica, the White House also confirming South Korea's leader will visit President Biden in Washington next month. What do we know about that trip and what might be on their agenda?
So it sounds like this is going to take place at the end of May. And what's notable here is that tomorrow, President Biden is expected to host his first world leader in person at the White House, and that is the Japanese Prime Minister Suga. He will be coming here, and undoubtedly they will be talking about all of the issues that pertain not just to Japan, but also to North Korea and South Korea. So today, that's why we heard from the South Korean government also confirming that he will be traveling here. And what's, of course, so interesting about all of this, Allison, as we've been covering for months, the Biden White House really wanted to focus the first 80 of these first 100 days on the coronavirus pandemic, on COVID relief, really domestic priorities, before pivoting more largely to international issues. Of course, they've been dealing with these overseas issues all the while they have been in office. But now we're going to start to see a little bit more of a shift in posture to having more events at the White House, and then also potentially with the president undertaking his own first foreign travel. We know that the G7 is taking place in the UK in June. The White House hasn't said definitively whether President Biden will attend in person. We know at the very least he'll be a part of that virtually. But given all of the summits and the world leader gatherings that have been canceled in the last year due to the health crisis, it seems that things are opening back up. And again, the president now engaging on the world stage in a more public-facing manner than has been the case over the last couple of months. Allison.
All right, Monica Alba in Washington, where I have to say, Monica, I can't help but have noticed all week long the trees are greener and in more full bloom than ever. You can almost not see the White House behind you. It really looks like spring has sprung in D.C. for sure.
You are right, Allison. Your eyes do not deceive you. We are in full bloom here. It's lovely.
Monica Alba, thanks so much. Derek Chauvin's murder trial moving on to closing arguments. The defense and the prosecution resting their cases today. The jury dismissed until Monday. NBC News correspondent Shaq Brewster outside the courthouse in Minneapolis. Shaq, the big headline today is that Chauvin invoked the Fifth Amendment. He will not testify. Here he is in court today.
It's your decision not to testify.
It is, Your Honor.
All right. Do you have any questions about your right to remain silent or to testify on your own behalf?
Not at this time, I don't.
All right. Has anyone promised anything or threatened you in any way to keep you from testifying?
No promises or threats, Your Honor.
Do you feel that your decision not to testify is a voluntary one on your behalf?
Yes, it is.
Shaq, any surprises there? From what we've been hearing, it really didn't seem like our legal analysts thought that it could help Chauvin's case to take the stand. But anything we're missing from this that was unexpected?
No, I think you're right. I think if you were to put a bet on it, you would say that Derek Chauvin was never going to take the stand in this trial, just because of that cross-examination and the opportunity and the risks that it opens him up to, things that have not been mentioned in this trial so far. For example, the complaints against him. The jury isn't familiar with that and is unaware of most of that right now. So I think if you were to put a bet on it, this was unexpected. I think if there was, or this was expected, excuse me. I think if there was something that was unexpected, it's us hearing Derek Chauvin's voice in the courtroom. That was the first time that we've really heard his voice, at least during this trial phase. We got to hear that exchange that he had with his attorney, explaining that this is something that they've been going back and forth on, that they've been having extensive conversations about. And then you heard the judge ask him those direct questions in that sound that you just played. So I think bottom line is the decision is not a surprise. It was unexpected for us to hear that much from him in court, but it's still a very big deal that he chose not to take the stand in his trial against him, which again is his right. He has his constitutional protections there,
right.
And that's what he exerted when he made this decision.
So, Shaq, that was the big headline today, but anything else we missed while we were paying attention to that? What else happened in court today?
Yeah, it was a lot of news today in that courtroom. It was a short day of court, but a lot of news and a lot of headlines that came out of it. You mentioned, obviously, we just talked about Derek Chauvin saying that he was not going to testify. The defense then rested their case, which was slightly unexpected because yesterday court wrapped up early because the judge said they didn't want to go to the next defense witness because that would have carried them over and late into the evening. So we thought there would at least be one other witness, but the defense rested their case. The prosecution then brought back one of their star witnesses, Dr. Tobin, who came in and kind of rebutted some of the points that you heard the defense raise, specifically the idea that George Floyd, with Dr. Fowler yesterday, George Floyd, while he was pinned down next to the squad car, that he suffered from carbon monoxide poisoning. Well, Dr. Tobin came back, explained why he thought that wasn't the case and why he was certain that wasn't the case. And you saw a quick direct examination and cross-examination there. And then that was the end of it. The court was back in session about an hour ago, very briefly. It was the attorneys and the judge. They were going over jury instructions. Those are the instructions that the jury is going to receive next week. We know Monday closing arguments, and then it'll be in the hands of the jury, the 12 jurors who will make the decision and decide Derek Chauvin's fate.
Shaq, it has been an emotional 14 days of testimony, to say the least. This trial now nearing its end, even though deliberations might take some time. What are you hearing from the Floyd family at this point?
Well, we heard from them as they were leaving court today. And one of the questions my colleague Gabe Gutierrez asked Rodney Floyd was, what did you think? What was your reaction to Derek Chauvin not taking the stand and choosing not to take the stand? Rodney mentioned that he was disappointed by it, that he went back and forth, and this is something he was thinking about for a while now. But listen to the rest of some of his response and what he told our colleague.
America has never apologized for anything they've done to black people. So it wasn't frustrating. It's just the way it goes. So I'm not frustrated at all about it. I mean, he don't want to accept accountability.
One of the family members who was in the courtroom told one of the pool reporters that he didn't expect Derek Chauvin to take the stand. He said that he thought the prosecution would rip Derek Chauvin into shreds or into pieces if he did take the stand in that cross-examination. Allison?
All right, Shaq Brewster, a bit of a break tomorrow, and then we will be back in court on Monday. Thank you so much.
That's right.
Everybody keeps saying justice, but unfortunately, there's never going to be justice for us. The justice would bring our son home to us, knocking on the door with his big smile, coming in the house, sitting down eating dinner with us, going out to lunch, playing with his 1-year-old, almost 2-year-old son, giving him a kiss before he walks out the door. So justice isn't even a word to me. I do want accountability, 100% accountability. Mm-hmm.
Daunte Wright's mother asking for accountability if she can't have justice. Today, the ex-cop who shot and killed her son during a traffic stop was in court for the first time. Kim Potter, a 26-year veteran of the Brooklyn Center Police Department, charged with second-degree manslaughter. NBC News correspondent Ron Allen is in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Ron, Potter appeared virtually today. What else can you tell us about her court appearance?
It lasted just a few minutes. It was a procedural hearing for the most part. They scheduled the next hearing for May 17th, about a month or so from now. She had already posted bail. She was arrested and in custody briefly and then made bail. So this was just a matter of getting it all together and planning for the next one. The hearing was behind closed doors, which happens a lot. But it was interesting that the public was not allowed to see this at all. And again, you heard from the family there in the open there. They're very concerned about getting tough justice, about getting accountability for this woman, because they feel like they've lost their son, they're grieving, they're mourning, but it's going to take some time for this judicial process to work its way out. She's charged with second-degree manslaughter. A lot of people, including some of Wright's relatives, say that she should be charged with murder because that's what she did, they say. She killed their son, and they think she should be held fully accountable, and that would be a murder charge. Allison?
Ron, the Wright family lawyer, Ben Crump, announced that Daunte's funeral will be next Thursday. Do we know any other details about those arrangements?
No, we were just talking to the family when they announced that. And, after that press conference, we were able to sit down with them and just have a little chat about all kinds of things. And, they were leaving to actually go plan the funeral. I was just struck by how this is a hardworking family. They're not, they're just ordinary people, and I don't mean that in a negative way. And they're just overwhelmed by what has happened. They've been thrust into this spotlight. They are grieving and mourning, and just can't believe that this 20-year-old man is gone. So they're trying to figure out just what to do, and they're very concerned about, again, accountability. They also are overwhelmed by the support that they've been getting from demonstrators, from people around the country as well, well-wishers. And they're hoping that this all proceeds peacefully and quickly and swiftly, and that Officer Potter, former Officer Potter, spends a lot of time in jail because of what she did. Allison?
Ron, we know there were more protests in Brooklyn Center last night, but there was a city curfew, and those protests were pretty calm. What are you expecting there tonight?
Well, they were smaller than in the past, but there was a moment of intensity when the police enforced the curfew right at the time, at 10 p.m. Hundreds of officers came in and surrounded this entire area and moved in and started arresting people. They only arrested 25 people or so, but everyone scattered. And the authorities said that that's what they were hoping, people would just leave and go home. But before that, there were several hours of the back and forth with projectiles going over the fence and the police responding. And they say they did not use tear gas, or any kinds of rubber bullets or non-lethal munitions. So in that sense, it was less volatile, but there's still a lot of intensity here. And again, they really moved in swiftly and in a huge show of force to enforce this curfew. What's going to happen tonight? We don't know. Each night has been a little bit different, but around me there's a festive atmosphere almost. It's like a block party. There's folks over there with a barbecue cooking out. There's all kinds of food around. There's music and entertainment. And the other thing I should point out is across the way there, they have added an additional fence and some barriers to give another level of protection and separation between the protesters and the police. So the police are trying to keep this under control. Remains to be seen how many protesters will continue for yet another night. Allison?
Yeah, Ron, we know there were 80 some odd arrests 2 nights ago. You said maybe 20 yesterday. It seems that they are at least trending in the right direction. Let's hope that continues. Thanks so much for your reporting today. New footage just released of the deadly confrontation between Chicago police and 13-year-old Adam Toledo. NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton has the latest from Chicago. And just a warning for you, this video is pretty disturbing.
Allison, we have been working through the newly released video and materials from the Civilian Office of Police Accountability. And earlier today, Mayor Lori Lightfoot warned that these videos and materials were excruciating, and that's exactly what it is. In the primary video, the body cam video from the shooting officer's perspective, what you see and what you're struck by is just how quickly these events transpired. You see the officer step out of his car and pursue Adam down an alleyway. Adam slows down against a fence, turns toward the officer. The officer shouts a command for him to put his hands up, and Adam follows. But in under 20 seconds, this chase has happened, and Adam is shot and he crumples to the ground. And it happens in what feels like the blink of an eye. Some expected that when we saw this video, it would be clear that Adam Toledo was armed, that he was using or planning to use a gun. That is not immediately apparent in the body cam footage that we were able to see. You see this officer approach quickly, and most of the video, frankly, then, is officers trying to save 13-year-old Adam Toledo's life. He falls to the ground. They try to administer CPR. They ask him to stay with them to see if he's still awake and listening to commands. And frankly, we were not able to hear many signs of life from Toledo. You know, we were warned days in advance that the family had seen this video, that it would be heartbreaking and traumatic. And I'm here in the neighborhood Little Village where his family is from. And so people have been bracing for this, concerned about having to see it and relive and see this trauma face to face. And people are expecting a lot of hurt and anger here tonight and over the coming days. There are protests planned for about 5:30 and 6 p.m. Central here in the city of Chicago. But people are also eagerly awaiting now for more information. As the video illuminates much for reporters and for civilians, there are so many questions that may remain unanswered. And the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, people have been urged to wait as they continue to release more information and to investigate this and release that information to the public in the coming days and weeks.
Jobless claims hitting a pandemic low today. 576,000 people filed for first-time unemployment benefits last week. But the U.S. economy is far from recovered. Nearly 17 million Americans are still collecting some sort of unemployment, even with millions of jobs currently available. So why is that? NBC News senior business reporter Ben Popkin explains.
There's a surge of almost 15 million jobs open, more than even before the pandemic began. But what's still sagging is the labor force participation rate, the percentage of people working or actively looking for work. That's part of why those jobs aren't being filled. Is it a skills mismatch? The pandemic hit low-wage jobs the hardest. So are just high-wage industries hiring? Actually not. There are nearly 2.5 million jobs open in healthcare, and another 2.5 million open in transportation and storage, and another 500,000 in food, and over 750,000 in retail sales, according to online job postings analyzed by ZipRecruiter. The call for hires is widespread. Call it the vaccine jobs boom. So with over 9 million unemployed, why aren't people taking these jobs? Well, experts say it's probably a combination of a few factors. Workers are still afraid of the virus and variants. Right now, only about a quarter of the U.S. is fully vaccinated. And many of the jobs hiring are in frontline roles: truckers, nurses, warehouse workers, sales associates, jobs that can't be done from home. Nearly half of job seekers say they want a remote job, even after the pandemic, according to a ZipRecruiter survey. But it said the workers who value remote work most, like women and African Americans, are underrepresented in some of the industries more likely to allow remote work, like finance and technology. While some of these jobs with openings can pay up to $45 an hour, others pay as little as $12. That might not be enough to coax workers back into the fray, especially if they can't arrange or afford childcare. Relief may also play a factor in workers' cost-benefit analysis. In March, pandemic unemployment assistance was reduced to $300 per week in additional benefits, but they were extended to September. Many employers say it's hard for them to compete with those unemployment checks, especially after being hit so hard for months, if not a whole year. The pandemic is forcing a reckoning in the jobs market. If America can face it and beat the virus, a roaring economy for all awaits.
Today should have been tax day, but if there's one silver lining in this pandemic, you now have an extra month to get your finances in order. So what should you do with all that time to get yourself ready? NBC News senior business correspondent Stephanie Ruhle has some advice.
Allison, it is April 15th, and if this were a normal year, today would be the deadline to pay your federal taxes. But as you and I both know, this is anything but a normal year. The federal tax deadline has been pushed from April 15th to May 17th, but it doesn't mean you don't owe today. Not all states pushed the state tax deadline. So check with the state where you file to make sure you have the deadline right, because we don't want you to get hit with fines or penalties. And just because you do have that month-long extension for your federal taxes doesn't mean you should procrastinate any longer, especially if you're expecting a refund. We know that the IRS has faced all sorts of delays this year, and the sooner you file, the sooner you'll get that refund. So it's good to get organized and get on it. Now, can you get an extension? Quite possibly you can get an extension to October, but you won't get it by simply not paying. You have to file for that extension. And let's say you're ready to file, but you don't have the money to pay. If you can show the government that you're in that financial position, they can put you on a payment plan. For more information on those options, go to irs.gov. So yes, April 15th makes a lot of people quake that it is tax day. It's not federal tax day, but it doesn't mean you don't have to do your taxes. So today is like any other day. Get organized, get ready. You're going to have to pay those taxes soon. Allison?
Mississippi, worst in the nation for vaccine distribution per 100,000 people, according to the CDC. But shots and appointments aren't the problem. MSNBC anchor Yasmin Vasugian is there to show us what's going on.
Yeah, Allison, there's a high level of vaccine hesitancy in the state of Mississippi in particular. 40% of this state are African American. On top of that, you have a lot of white conservative men in the state. Those are the two groups of folks that have the highest levels of vaccine hesitancy in this state and really across the country as well. But let me tell you what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing as well. So what I'm seeing this morning is a lineup of cars all the way down the block. I mean, we got here early this morning around 7 a.m. or so. And there's been a lineup of cars throughout the morning of folks trying to get this vaccine, their first and second shots of the Moderna vaccine at this clinic. Now, we're seeing this, but I'm also hearing from folks, as I spoke to them yesterday, as to why there is such a high level of hesitancy in this community. It's a couple of reasons. First of all, this is a rural community, right? It takes 25, 30 miles to drive to some of these clinics that are getting these vaccines. And that's expensive for a lot of folks. There's been a lot of job loss here because of the economic downturn during this pandemic. That has affected folks. So it's hard to not only not go to your job for a day because you have to get the vaccine, but on top of that, to have to pay to get to some of these clinics. That's tough to swallow for many of these folks. There's also a lack of trust overall in the government. So they're worried about that. And then it's the shot. They're nervous about getting these shots, as so many people have told me over and over again. And it's one of the reasons why Johnson & Johnson actually was the preferred vaccine in this community because they thought, okay, I'm already hesitant in getting this vaccine, but if I agree to get one, I'm only going to get one shot. So a lot of people here wanted to get the Johnson & Johnson. So on Tuesday, when that decision came out from the CDC and the FDA to pause the distribution of this vaccine, it really hit this community hard. I spoke to Pam Chapman. She is the head of an organization called Boss Lady Workforce, helping folks in rural communities get these vaccines. Here's what she had to say about her efforts.
We were all excited because we had so many people committed to taking the J&J. And as soon as we informed them that they had taken it off the shelves, they panicked. Everybody left. They canceled their appointments. We had local industries that had committed to bringing their employees over to get vaccinated, and no one wanted it. That not that they just said, I don't want it. They just didn't want it. And they didn't want to take Moderna. They were out.
And so, Allison, it's really about the ground game going forward now. They want to try and get the Moderna vaccine to as many folks as they can, as many folks possible, I should say, as they can. Pharmacies here are also distributing the Pfizer vaccine as well. So they're calling folks that decide not to get the vaccine when the Johnson & Johnson was polled on Tuesday and saying, look, we have the Moderna vaccine. We can give you that. They're educating them. They're giving them the facts, the efficacy of the Moderna vaccine. They're engaging churches, church leaders, pastors, telling them about how they can talk to their congregates about this vaccine, talk to them about the numbers, the facts, give them information as to where they can get this vaccine and when they can get this vaccine. And they're doing door knocking. They're putting up billboards on highways because so many folks drive in the state, being that it's a rural community, to educate and inform folks about how and when they can get this vaccine. So despite the hesitancy, they are moving forward with trying to get as many shots in arms as they can, Allison.
Will you need a COVID vaccine booster shot? And if so, when? Pfizer CEO with some guidance.
A likely scenario is that there will be likely a need for a third dose somewhere between 6 and 12 months. And then from there will be an annual revaccination.
Emergency medicine physician Dr. Regina Pisette joins me now. Dr. Pisette, so this looks like it could be an annual thing, maybe like the flu shot, at least according to Pfizer's CEO. What do you think here?
Well, there are plenty of vaccines that are on the market, vaccines that have been on the market for years that require multiple doses. So this isn't a novel idea. Personally, having seen firsthand the devastation that COVID can cause, I would be willing to take a COVID shot every month, every 3 months if I had to, in order to avoid coronavirus. It is just that serious and just that dangerous.
Speaking of serious and dangerous, a 7th woman reporting blood clots after getting the J&J vaccine, obviously a bit concerning. The Biden administration's chief science officer, though, telling Congress that nothing should keep Americans from getting vaccinated. Here he is.
Nothing should detract from the fact that Americans need to get vaccinated and that we have vaccines available today that meet our high standards for safety and effectiveness.
Dr. Pisette, this J&J pause is making some people nervous. We know that it's in small numbers. We know the clots are rare, but still, it's a scary thing to hear. What would you say to folks who are nervous if they were your patients? How would you advise them?
Well, you know, this situation is a little bit of a catch-22. I think it's amazing that the CDC and the FDA have responded and reacted so quickly because you're right. This is a very, very small number of cases. We're talking about 6, maybe 7 cases out of the almost 7 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that have been given. So that's less than 1 in 1 million. It is a small cluster, but our regulatory bodies are doing their due diligence to make sure that this is just something coincidental and not something that's due to the vaccine. Again, the incidence of this type of blood clot in the general population is actually much higher, COVID vaccine withstanding. It's about 15 per million. So I do still think that there is some more investigation that needs to be done, but I know that this is only going to contribute to vaccine hesitancy, and that's what I'm really afraid of.
Yeah, definitely concerning. We want people to be going and getting those vaccines so we can get past this. The CDC has released some data on breakthrough cases. Those are people who get COVID after they've been fully vaccinated. 5,800 people who are fully vaccinated have gotten COVID-19. 7% of them got sick enough to go to the hospital. 74 people died. What else do we know about breakthrough infections? What is important for our viewers to know about breakthrough infections?
This is not an aha moment just yet. It's not something that is unexpected. From the very beginning, both Pfizer and Moderna told us that their vaccines were about 95% effective in clinical trials. Once we tested that in real world conditions, we discovered that the vaccines are about 90% effective. So let's take that into real world numbers. There have been about 76 million people in the US that have been fully vaccinated. And if we're thinking that this vaccine is 90% effective, I would have expected about 7.6 million Americans to have these breakthrough infections already. So the fact that we're only reporting about 5,800 is actually pretty astonishing.
Dr. Bissett, always great to have you on. You calm us down, you help us see things clearly, and just feel a little bit more like we know what's going on in a pandemic where we still have so many questions. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. So good to see you, Allison.
See you soon. Just over 13.5 million people in Africa have gotten a COVID shot, according to the World Health Organization. In the U.S., 198 million. Pretty big difference, huh? NBC News senior investigative correspondent Cynthia McFadden went to Uganda to see just how difficult distribution is there.
A look at the tragically slow distribution of COVID vaccines to the world's poorest countries. This is all the vaccine Uganda had left a few weeks ago. So far, COVAX has managed to send only enough vaccine to inoculate about 1% of Uganda's population. The same's true for many of the world's other poor countries. We've been given an exclusive look at the first wave of distribution here to healthcare workers, a complicated process in this complicated country. It's a race against time, not just for the people here, but to stop the spread of the virus and its variants worldwide. Hours outside the capital, we finally reached the beginning of the last mile for a very small batch of COVID-19 vaccines.
There is hope that the vaccine is actually coming in.
Dr. Eva Kabungera is UNICEF's lead immunization specialist.
UNICEF is the lead agency for the distribution of the vaccines here. So you've been sleeping, breathing the vaccine.
Working almost 24 hours, no sleep.
We're headed to the Buvuma Island. There are 52 of them with 130,000 residents. The last mile requires one last boat.
Getting this vaccine this far has not been easy,
yes.
But precious cargo. It's wonderful to have this, and yet it's a much smaller amount than you'd hoped.
This arduous journey to deliver only 40 precious doses.
For over 100,000 people, there are about 200 healthcare workers on these islands.
Oh, even more.
So is that enough?
No, it's not enough, of course.
After a very wet ride,
here we are.
We carry the vaccine coolers to the clinic. The race continues the next day as we head to an equally remote and equally important location, the Bidi refugee settlement. Uganda is home to more refugees than anywhere else in Africa.
We have security 24 hours. We want to be sure that nothing happens with the vaccines.
The arrival of the vaccines is taken very seriously.
This is gold to us.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, very important.
Oh, wow, there's the ice
quite a number of them can fit in there.
Yeah?
Getting the vaccines to even these extremely remote areas is not the problem. The problem is not having enough vaccines. In part because many wealthy countries are hoarding. According to the World Health Organization, 87% of vaccines have been administered in high-income countries.
We are only safe if all of us are safe. And if any one country thinks after vaccinating its population they are safe, it is a lie.
Dr. Ruth Acheng is Uganda's Minister of Health.
Many wealthy countries have procured not only enough vaccine to vaccinate their entire populations, but to vaccinate their entire populations many times over.
That is painful. Very painful. Every human life matters. And we have to hold hands together if we are going to win this war.
But so far, that has largely been beyond reach.
And Cynthia joins me now. She is back home from Africa. Cynthia, it's just heartbreaking. I feel so guilty even saying the number of vaccines that have been distributed in Africa, and then you compare it to, you know, what we've gotten here in the U.S., and it's outrageous. Since you left, has the situation improved at all? Has the global community stepped up and done any more to help out poor countries like Uganda?
Well, let me start with what we know about what's happened in Uganda since we left. We've spoken to Dr. Eva, and she told us that only 50 additional doses of the vaccine have been distributed in the Buvuma Islands. Why? Because they don't have enough money to buy the petrol to run the boats. So they've got some vaccine they're having a hard time getting to people. UNICEF is trying to step in, and they tell us that if you contribute $10, you can vaccinate three people with both the first and a second shot. So anybody who's so moved, you can find information about that on our website. In terms of the global effort, it isn't that the COVAX operation isn't trying. I mean, their goal is to get 2 million doses out around the world this year. But, it's been slow going. India, which was providing, this is AstraZeneca for the most part, AstraZeneca doses. India has said, listen, we're having a problem at home. We're going to slow down. We're going to stop some of the deliveries that were expected for April and May. So right now, our best information is they're not entirely certain when they're going to get the next round. And you saw in that freezer how few doses there are. There are still countries that have not administered a single dose of vaccine. And to just underline it one final time, this isn't just because we care about other human beings who also need access to the vaccine. Until everybody is vaccinated, no one is completely safe. The variants will keep coming and the pandemic will keep spreading.
Yeah, if you don't care about your neighbors, this also is about caring about yourself, right? I mean, even if you're selfish in this, it absolutely affects all of us. People need to realize we're not just on an island here in the U.S. separated from everyone. You point out just how poor folks are there in Uganda. It's one of the poorest countries in Africa. Could you talk to us a little bit about COVID cases there and how it compares to the rest of the world right now? Because we do know how they're struggling with vaccines. What's the case count situation there?
It's really kind of extraordinary. Epidemiologists imagined that this virus would strike Uganda and other very poor places in Africa really hard, as so many other communicable diseases have. But guess what? In a population of 41 million, there have been 40,000 cases, about 300 deaths. Now, some of that is because of a factor that the epidemiologists apparently did not take into account. 50% of the population in Uganda is under 18. And as we know, young people, though they can get the disease and can be very sick, not in the same way as older people. And also, second factor, Uganda has a very vibrant public health operation, and they really cracked down. For 2 full months, there was an absolute lockdown in the country. Uganda has been rated among the top 10 countries in the world in terms of actually doing. So, but it's still it's still a problem for the same reasons. We don't know where it's going to pop up next,
Sure. Yeah, well, Cynthia, look, there are some silver linings in this. They have done an incredible job. They're a poor country, but you say that they've done a great job on the health front. I know they're struggling with vaccines, but you mentioned it. A little bit of money goes a really long way over there. So if folks are so inclined, make a donation. Maybe we can help get some more people in this world vaccinated. Cynthia, thank you.
Thank you.
Thousands of Russian troops gathering near the Ukrainian border. Secretary of State Antony Blinken calling it the largest concentration of Russian forces on Ukraine's borders since 2014. So what is President Putin up to here? NBC News foreign correspondent Matt Bradley joins me now. So, Matt, tell us more about what's going on at the Ukrainian border. What do we know here?
Well, it's not just that Russian buildup, the Russian troop buildup, Allison. It's also an increase in fighting between, or really among, Ukrainians, between the Ukrainian government and Ukrainian separatists who are backed by Russia and have been backed by Russia since 2014 when that last buildup happened. You know what happened in that last buildup, Allison, was Russia invaded Crimea and then annexed it following a referendum. So, I mean, that was a very threatening move. And this has all of the markings of some sort of military incursion along the lines of what happened in 2014. But this isn't all necessarily headed towards war. We are seeing along the border this massive buildup, and alongside of it, 100,000 Russian troops building up alongside the border, some of them displaced from far-flung places elsewhere in Russia just to come there. It looks like saber rattling, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be an outbreak of hostilities, because most of the people who are looking at this, including Russian analysts, Western analysts, and politicians who are involved, say really there's not a whole lot for Vladimir Putin to gain by launching some sort of further military incursion into Ukraine. Allison?
Mm-hmm. So, Matt, Kremlin officials are calling these training missions, but are U.S. officials buying that? Is that what they think is really going on here?
No, this doesn't really look like just your ordinary Russian training missions. I mean, we see those all the time. This is a massive buildup of troops. We're seeing a huge number of infantry and mechanized weaponry that are sort of mustering along that border. But we're also seeing some signs that it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be launching some sort of surprise attack, because they're not doing this in private. They're not trying to conceal anything and showing evidence of them doing it anyway. They're doing it totally in public. They're not taking the kinds of defensive positions or posture that they would if they were actually preparing for some kind of invasion. So all of these things are important to note. If anything, this just looks like a show of force, the kind of show of force that Vladimir Putin has done before, and what could be aimed more at trying to gauge what kind of man Joe Biden is. That is the real wild card here. And that's what a lot of people who are looking at this are saying. This just bears a lot of the hallmarks of Vladimir Putin trying to puff up his chest and seeing if Biden will take the bait.
All right. Well, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how the Biden administration responds. Matt, thanks so much for getting us up to speed here. More details about Prince Philip's funeral Saturday. His coffin will be carried on top of a specially adapted Land Rover, which he actually helped design. Meanwhile, more tributes from the royal family are pouring in. Here's NBC News foreign correspondent Kelly Kobiea.
Yeah, Allison, the family really opening the family album in tribute to Prince Philip, sharing all sorts of photos, including one of Prince Philip and the great-grandchildren taken by Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge, all as we wait to hear the final details of Saturday's funeral.
Rehearsals for a historic funeral. The military doing a run-through for Prince Philip's official send-off on Saturday, while Prince Charles and Camilla look over the thousands of flowers and messages from the public. Prince Philip, married to the Queen for more than 73 years, lived long enough to see his grandchildren grow up and have children of their own. The palace releasing this touching, never-seen-before picture of the Queen and Duke with 7 of their 10 great-grandkids. For the grandchildren, like William and Harry, Philip was just grandpa, an extraordinary man who was always there.
He was somebody who, incredibly pressed for time as he was all the time, nonetheless made sure that his grandchildren understood the traditions as well as the ups and downs of monarchy.
Over the years, whether in private or at many royal events, he shared with them his ideas and interests, and always with a warm smile. The Duke was at every adult grandchild's wedding, even at 99 years old in the middle of a pandemic. In an ITV documentary for the Queen's 90th birthday, Princess Beatrice speaking fondly about her granddad.
There are lots of moments where I've been able to share some quite magical times with my grandfather.
Her sister, Princess Eugenie, who named her baby son after Philip, posting these pictures and moving memories. I remember learning how to cook, how to paint, what to read. I remember your hands and your laugh and your favorite beer. Prince William remembered the man who took his children on carriage rides and was by his side, rain or shine. I feel lucky to have not just had his example to guide me, but his enduring presence well into my own adult life. Prince Harry said Philip was my grandpa, master of the barbecue, legend of banter, and cheeky right till the end. He was an influence and inspiration, a source of strength for 2 young boys who'd lost their mother.
Prince Harry and Prince William spent a lot of time with Prince Philip. They had a lot of outdoor pursuits in common. He loved them, and he was a very good and loving grandfather.
It was Philip who gave the brothers the strength all those years ago to walk behind their mother, Princess Diana's coffin. Now his grandchildren could walk with him one last time. Members of the royal family, led by Prince Charles, will follow the casket in that 8-minute-long funeral procession on Saturday.
Don't put away your winter jackets just yet. The Northeast and the central U.S. bracing for a mid-April snowstorm. NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns joins us now with a look at the forecast. Bill, I just put my coat away Tuesday. Come on, man. Tell me this is not heading for downstate New York. What is this?
I don't want to talk about the snow, Allison. I mean, I put the gloves away, the hats, the boots, everything. It's not going to affect the New York City area. And I think the people in central and northern New England know better, I hope. They get these storms occasionally. So we have two things to talk about. First, I want to talk about the Louisiana situation, because this is kind of the life-threatening weather. We had the boat that capsized. We had some really big storms. So on the map, we have the nor'easter. We're going to talk about that in a second. And we've had a ton of rain in Louisiana. The boat capsized from the storms a couple days ago. Today, the weather was very rough. Things have calmed down, so that's good. We get a little bit of a break, but here's the issue. We've had so much rain. Everywhere you see the little red squiggly line, these are all rivers that are in flood stage right now. It's pretty much all of the major rivers that we have flooding. And another round of rain is coming Friday and Saturday. So they put up a flash flood watch and a flood watch for this area right through Saturday. We could see additional problems with flooding, rivers rising, and hopefully not getting into homes, but it is a possibility. Now let's talk about that lovely storm that's right over the top now of the Northeast. It's all rain now, but later on tonight, as the storm gets stronger, it draws in some colder air. Rain is going to change to, yes, snow in the middle of April. Winter storm warnings cover much of New Hampshire, good portion of Vermont, western Mass, portions of Maine. Notice the big cities stay out of the snow. I think you'll see some snowflakes in areas like Portland. I don't think Boston, if you do, it won't stick anyways. But it's really in the mountains that we're going to get enough accumulating snow. And we may get 6, 8, maybe 9 inches at most. And that's enough this time of year. It's going to be a heavy, wet snow. We could even deal with some power outages there on some of the trees. So here's how the forecast looks. There's your nor'easter Friday and some all day Friday in the Northeast. There's that next rain system in the south. And we still have snow in Colorado and Wyoming we can't get rid of. Saturday, we clear it out in the Northeast for a decent weekend. Some of that rain lingers in the Southeast on Saturday. By Sunday, I think we're going to look at things much improved. So if you put the jacket away, I think you're okay. Tomorrow you may wish you had the gloves and the hat, but you have one day to kind of grin and bear it, and then we'll get a little better on the weekend.
And at least not around here. And you said it, right, Bill? I mean, folks in what, northern Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, they're used to this. They know what they're dealing with. They got this.
Yeah, if you took the plow blade off, then it was your mistake. You know better.
Bill Cairns, always great to see you, even if it's to tell us that snow is coming in April. Appreciate it.
Okay.
A dozen people still missing 2 days after a commercial ship capsized off the Louisiana coast. 6 people survived that accident. 1 person died. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock is in Louisiana. Sam, I understand the Coast Guard is now calling this a major marine casualty incident. Where are they in their search and rescue mission this evening?
Allison, good evening. That's correct. A major marine casualty incident. When you hear those words, you certainly think of the worst. I called the U.S. Coast Guard. We had a conversation just minutes ago about what that actually means. They said it does not mean they're confirming that 12 people are dead. I was referred to the actual definition, which describes, Allison, an accident or casualty situation on U.S. navigable waters. Now, that was the case 2 days ago as well. But the fact that this designation has now been deployed, plus the fact we've learned the NTSB is on the ground here in the New Orleans area, or I should say in Port Fourchon, and the fact that they are investigating this nationally certainly raises the profile and concern about what the implications would be. Your original question, Allison, about what's going on right now with rescue efforts, the U.S. Coast Guard describes them as ongoing, and they have been ongoing all week. There are air and water assets in play, helicopters, cutters, a bevy of other boats that are out there right now, and I was told that divers were out this morning to assess the situation, but because of weather, they had to hold off. Now there is a suggestion that divers are back out there in the water, but the U.S. Coast Guard, Allison, won't confirm that. And I have to tell you that one of the major storylines today has been the lack of transparency, or at least lack of information and ability to question U.S. Coast Guard officials. We had a press conference yesterday. There has been nada today. And so what that has done is forced one of the family members of someone who is missing right now, the 37-year-old crane operator, we're told, of the Seacorp Power, the name of that ship. She came out and basically held an impromptu press conference at this fire station over my shoulder, and she filled us on what she was hearing from Seacorp, which is the company that owns the boat. Seacorp hasn't responded to any request for comment on this. What she said was they were told 8 to 10 divers were deployed. They're trying to get toward that boat right now, it might take them 4 days to get through the entire thing and sweep it all. It's so large once they can access it. But this woman, Marion Geiler, is feeling better. Here's what she said.
Hopefully, best case scenario, they're all in that first room that they go to. You know, worst case, they're all spread out. So it's a waiting game. We just have to wait and keep the faith and keep praying.
What Marion is referring to there in terms of hopefully they're safe and we'll be able to get to them, the room she's referring to is the engine room. She had heard from someone who had survived already and been rescued, but there were still 2 people in there. I got to tell you, we reached out to the U.S. Coast Guard on that as well. They said that those reports right now of communication between responders and anyone inside that ship are unconfirmed. But this is such a fluid situation, Allison. We're going to stay on top of it.
Sam, thank you so much for that. I know it's been really tough to get information, especially given the situation you described. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Allison.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.